What's your name, darling?
My name is Susan Boyle. I'm trying to be a professional singer.
And why hasn't it worked out so far, Susan?
I've never been given the chance before.
The legendary and one-of-a-kind singer Susan Boyle became famous following her impressive performance on Britain's Got Talent. Her songs include Someone to Watch Over Me and many more emotional tunes. She had a successful career with revenues of almost $45 million, thanks in large part to her amazing voice. Still, she blinked and vanished from the stage, shocking everyone, including her fans, despite her accomplishment. Come explore Susan Boyle's life with us as we tell you every part of her story. Everything about her life will be discussed, starting from her childhood, her troubled history, and even the terrible things that happened on Britain's Got Talent. Hold on tight and keep watching all the way to the finish. In order to fully grasp the discoveries and Susan's ultimate fate, it is necessary to first grasp her humble beginnings and the path that propelled her to stardom. Born into an immigrant family from County Donegal, Ireland, Boyle's ancestry begins in Blackburn, West Lothian, Scotland on April 1, 1961. Her dad, Patrick Boyle, was a miner and World War II veteran who had a hard time supporting his big family. Bridget, Susan's mom, worked as a shorthand typewriter to help out around the house. Patrick had a significant impact on Susan's artistic dreams, despite their low finances. He would charm audiences with his lyrical performances at the Bishop's Blaze when he wasn't working in the mines. It was Susan's desire to follow in her father's footsteps in the music industry that first sparked an interest in performing on stage. Despite this, Susan had a troubled childhood, seeing her father go from a cherished family man to a cold and resentful adult. As a result of the trauma he had endured during the war, Patrick occasionally lost his composure and resorted to physical aggression, especially against Susan, one of his children. His fury would flare up at the smallest misstep, and physical violence was often the consequence. Because of the family's financial hardship, Patrick often took his anger out on Susan, his daughter. Even though it was difficult, Susan's caring personality allowed her to tend to her sick father in his last years. She made up with him in the end, but her troubled childhood continued to haunt her, limiting her potential as a musician. As Susan reflected on the difficult trip, she spoke openly about how she had a hard time accepting the consequences of her father's actions. She recognized the value of acceptance and self-improvement in spite of the hurt and anger, highlighting the difficult but ultimately liberating process of releasing grudges. Susan expressed her own perspective. You have to accept it. That's maturity. It's not easy, but you have to let it go and replace it with a new self. That's what I've been focusing on in the past 6 months. It's difficult. I have a lot of good and bad memories. I've been coming to terms with it. By reflecting on her past and pushing through difficult times, Susan sought to establish a new identity, navigating the complexities of her upbringing while seeking inner peace and meaning. Susan had an unfaltering love for music even though she had a terrible childhood. But there were many challenges waiting for her on the path to fulfilling her ambition. Susan was born into a family of 8, 6 sisters and 4 brothers, in a time when money was tight, and her mother, Bridget, was 47 years old when she had to take on the responsibility of parenting Susan and her siblings. It wasn't long before Susan's cognitive impairments were revealed. Her birth was fraught with danger due to circumstances that momentarily robbed her of oxygen. After thinking about it all, it's obvious that Susan had her share of challenges in life, but she overcame them and became famous. What became of her is still the central mystery, and what caused her abrupt disappearance. To find out more, continue watching. The educational system was not prepared to meet Susan's demands, making school an even more difficult environment for her. Susan detailed a vicious circle of bullying and academic failure as she recounted her traumatic experiences. She spoke deeply about her feelings of helplessness in an interview on how the system valued speed above understanding. According to her, "I was a slow learner. I'm just a little slower at picking things up than others, so you get left behind in a system that just wants to rush on. You know? That was what I felt was happening to me." The harsh punishments administered by unsupportive educators, including physical punishment for poor performance in class, further intensified her feelings of shame and depression. Persistent bullying from her classmates, exemplified by the derogatory nickname Susie Simple, tainted Susan's early years. Her mental and emotional health suffered greatly as a result of the relentless bullying she endured outside of school as well. Looking back on this terrifying period of her life, Susan revealed how the school's harsh disciplinary policies and constant bullying made her feel alone and impeded her ability to learn. Nonetheless, Susan's tenacity and will were on full display as she discovered comfort and strength in music, until she courageously revealed a devastating part of her past in 2011. Susan kept some of the deepest difficulties she had endured throughout her journey private. Susan had to deal with seizures, which hampered her development, and her undetected learning handicap. Medical experts made the right diagnosis, but her parents and instructors failed to adequately manage her disease, making her situation worse. Her persistent attackers found ammunition in the symptoms of her epilepsy, which included frequent seizures while at school, adding insult to injury and further isolating her. Her outbursts were frequently received with apathy or disregard at home due to the lack of comprehension surrounding her disease, which resulted in inadequate assistance. The situation was further worsened by the mistaken belief that her learning deficiencies were the cause of her epilepsy, which led to a vicious cycle of miscommunication and neglect. The scholastic path Susan took was fraught with difficulty, and she graduated without having accomplished anything. Finding work was extremely challenging due to a lack of relevant experience and education, as well as an undetected learning condition. The depressing routine of rejections and failed interviews persisted despite her best efforts. Employment chances continued to elude her. Short-term jobs and dependence on government training programs continued to plague Susan's job chances. Susan discovered comfort and meaning in her musical endeavors, taking delight in singing at local venues, despite the insecurity of her working life. Nevertheless, a deep sorrow would spur her on to pursue a long-suppressed ambition. To find out how something lovely came out of something terrible, keep watching. Fred O'Neill was Boyle's first voice teacher, and she later attended the Edinburgh Acting School and the Fringe to refine her craft. On the pilgrimages that her parish church made to Ireland's Knock Shrine, she also performed. Her 1995 audition was for My Kind of People, starring Michael Barrymore. With the help of her money, Boyle recorded 3 songs in 1998 at Heartbeat Studio in Midlothian: Cry Me a River, Killing Me Softly, and Don't Cry for Me Argentina. She then sent professional demos to record labels, radio talent programs, and television networks. In the demo, she sang Cry Me a River and Killing Me Softly with his song. The next year, Boyle was a contributor to a charity CD called Music for a Millennium Celebration, Sounds of West Lothian, which was marking the turn of the millennium. After her debut on television, her cover of Cry Me a River became a hit, and word got out about her album. Boyle entered Britain's Got Talent despite early skepticism about her age and looks, encouraged by her mother and former instructor. Because she thought that people were picked on their appearance rather than their abilities, she decided against trying out for the X Factor. Nonetheless, she gave in to her coach's persuasion and entered Britain's Got Talent. Despite the hardships she had as a child, Susan Boyle overcame them all by believing in herself and others and always finding a way to help those in need. Susan persisted in her quest of a profession in music despite obstacles she encountered at home. After Susan's father passed away, she and her siblings were left to face the difficulties of life without him. Even though she was grieving, Susan never wavered from her resolve to take care of her sick mother and to keep her musical dreams alive. With the unfaltering support and encouragement of her mother, Susan's drive stayed strong while she pursued a career in professional music, despite the obstacles she encountered. In the wake of her mother's death, Susan decided to pursue her musical passion by trying out for Britain's Got Talent, a choice that was fraught with emotional agony as she tried to cope with her loss. Still reeling from the devastating loss, Susan wowed the judges and fans with her mesmerizing audition, which catapulted her to fame and fortune on a global scale. An inspiration, Susan's story shows how overcoming obstacles and following one's heart can change one's life for the better. Susan overcame seemingly insurmountable obstacles by remaining steadfast in her skill and drawing strength from the unconditional love of her mother, which guided her to a destiny that transcended her humble origins. By performing on Britain's Got Talent, Susan Boyle put her conviction in music's inherent value as an art form rather than a show to the test. Susan refused to let the cynicism and dismissal of her audience dampen her resolve to pursue her dream of being a singer. Everyone, from the crowd to the judges, treated Susan with suspicion and contempt the second she came onto the platform. People were quite critical of her because of her age, and the fact that she seemed unsuited for the glamorous world of show business. Simon Cowell and the other judges didn't have any trust in Susan's ability and mocked her ambitions. Nevertheless, Susan's daring choice to sing I Dreamed a Dream from Les Miserables halted her detractors and left the judges and audience in amazement. Susan gave a performance that went beyond the limits of the competition, a display of unfiltered emotion and vulnerability. This audition was more than simply an opportunity for Susan to show off her skills. It was a way for her to honor her mother, whose soul she felt was still with her. Susan took comfort in her music while she was going through a difficult time in her life, and her hypnotic performance won over audiences across the globe. One thing that Susan Boyle's early life teaches us is that first impressions are often the hardest to trust. By submitting an audition tape to Britain's Got Talent at the age of 47, she disproved the assumption that you can't be successful after a certain age. Talent has no limits. Following her audition, Susan's renown skyrocketed, and she became a worldwide celebrity. Her meteoric rise to fame is an inspiration and a tribute to the transformative power of music as a global language of love and inspiration. The judges and viewers of Britain's Got Talent were skeptical at first, but Susan's breathtaking audition won them over in the end. Susan, dressed simply and without fanfare, stepped onto the stage and shocked everyone with her performance. The judges and spectators were both astonished by her commanding vocals. Her immense talent was on full display, in the dramatic shift from early doubt to a thunderous standing ovation. The internet went wild over Susan's audition and previous performances almost immediately after she posted them. She became an international sensation after her 1999 cover of Cry Me a River, and audition footage went viral, garnering millions of views. Susan captivated fans throughout the tournament while suffering sickness and weariness. Her influence was bigger than any accolade she could have received, even though she was not the winner of Britain's Got Talent. Susan has captured the imagination of millions of people all across the globe, encouraging them to follow their passions regardless of their age or background. When Susan's first album, I Dreamed a Dream, came out, it cemented her position as a musical phenomenon. The album sold over 2 million copies globally in less than a week after its release, shattering sales records. With sales of over 9 million copies worldwide, it instantly became 2009's best-selling album. The record had the greatest first week for a debut album by a female artist since sales tracking started in 1991, which Billboard described as unparalleled. In addition to realizing her goals, Susan Boyle had become an inspiration to people all around the globe. Susan Boyle's name became linked with excellence in the music industry after her debut album became unprecedentedly successful, garnering her numerous entries in the Guinness World Records. She became the oldest person to have a debut album go platinum in the UK, had the best first week of sales, and established a record for the fastest-selling first album by a female artist. She became an international superstar thanks to her incredible singing voice. Even though she was born and raised in the United States, Susan's effect went much beyond her own nation. After her abilities were seen by the creators of another famous talent show, America's Got Talent, she was warmly welcomed and accommodated. The judges' unanimous yes sent Susan soaring on her path to success. She had finally left behind the days of having to deal with people's mistrust and distrust. The fact that Susan was able to overcome her worries and take center stage as the heroine of her own narrative was something she herself admitted as a result of her victories. Susan, armed with her newfound self-assurance and resolve, continued her prodigious creative adventure, releasing 2 further albums in rapid succession. 2 albums that showcase Susan's breadth and versatility, The Gift in 2010 and Someone to Watch Over Me the following year, hit store shelves. Following a short break, Susan came back stronger than ever in 2013 with her joyful CD, Standing Ovation, The Greatest Songs from the Stage, with the intention of spreading the pleasure of Christmas. Unveiling Hope in 2015 and A Wonderful World in 2016, Susan continued her impressive run of groundbreaking albums, enthralling audiences with her passionate performances and timeless compositions. Susan Boyle's ability to motivate people via her music and her dogged commitment to her art made her an icon of the business, even though she encountered obstacles throughout her career. As she battled the effects of aging and other ailments, Susan Boyle chose to take an indefinite vacation from music after devoting herself diligently to it. Her legendary music career seems to have come to an end. However, Susan Boyle consistently manages to shock and amaze her audience by going against the grain. By celebrating 10 years of her amazing career in 2019, she stunned her followers. The publication of Susan Boyle's album, 10 Inches, solidified her status as a top performer in the music industry by showcasing her exceptional skill. From 2012 to 2014, Boyle took piano lessons so she could add the instrument to her concerts, proving her dedication to music quality. In a duet of From This Moment On by Shania Twain and renowned opera singer Placido Domingo, which was released in October 2012, Boyle was included. In addition to her musical endeavors, Boyle dabbled in acting, making her film debut as Eleanor Hopewell in The Christmas Candle. The film, which was adapted from a novel by Max Lucado, depicts a 19th-century English community that desperately needs a miracle. Upon making her acting debut, Boyle was overjoyed, calling the experience fantastic and complimenting her co-workers. The film's hymn, Miracle Hymn, is an original composition by Boyle and appears on her 2013 album, Home for Christmas. The CD also has a duet with Elvis Presley on O Come All Ye Faithful. Acting wasn't the first time Boyle dabbled with the silver screen. She had already played herself in self-promotional TV documentaries like I Dreamed a Dream, The Susan Boyle Story, and Susan Boyle, An Unlikely Superstar. Later, she was the featured subject of There's Something About Susan, a documentary that ran under different titles in the US and the UK. Additionally, in his 2013 album Sending You a Little Christmas, the duet Do You Hear What I Hear featured American performer Johnny Mathis and Boyle alongside Mathis. According to the Huffington Post, Susan Boyle's presentation on the show was designed to be strategic. The Herald calls Boyle's tale a modern parable that highlights how people still get caught up in superficial criteria when evaluating others. Amid a similar vein, Entertainment Weekly portrayed Boyle's performance as a victory of artistic skill amid a society preoccupied with outward appearances. Boyle spoke out against people making snap judgments based on outward appearances in an interview with The Washington Post, saying she hoped her story would teach people a lesson. Moreover, R.M. Campbell of The Gathering Note used comparisons to legendary personalities like Ella Fitzgerald to emphasize the difficulties women have in achieving professional success, especially those who do not adhere to conventional notions of beauty. According to Huffington Post writer Letty Cotton Pogrebin, who was writing on Boyle's performance, it was a win for women of a certain age who were fighting against a culture that was focused on youth. The Guardian's Tanya Gold criticized the show's sex bias by pointing out that male competitors, such Paul Potts, were treated differently than Boyle. Speaking on Boyle's relatability as a every woman vocal coach, Eric Vetro drew a contrast to romanticized ideas of feminine beauty. The media in the U.S. made many connections between Boyle's success and the American dream because of how deeply it connected with American audiences. Stories of resilience in the face of poverty and hardship were compared, echoing a theme profoundly embedded in American society. The narrative was presented by the Associated Press as a traditional rags-to-riches scenario, with a focus on Boyle's humble background and the difficulties of her neighborhood. In a similar vein, David Usborne of The Independent brought attention to the American preoccupation with tales of regular individuals undergoing remarkable transformations, drawing parallels to popular stories like Shrek and My Fair Lady. Social media sites such as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube substantially magnified the effect of Susan Boyle's ascent to stardom. Almost 2.5 million people watched her audition video in the first 3 days after it went up. It shot to the top of Dig's popularity and even made it to Reddit's homepage. In just 1 week, her audition had broken internet records with over 66 million views, and her Wikipedia article had about 500,000 page views, thanks to the attention it got. It was perfect for the internet, according to the Los Angeles Times, and her performance touched people all around the globe. Her audition video surpassed 120 million views in December 2009, making it the most watched YouTube video of the year. Its popularity was more than triple that of the second most popular video. In addition, the West Lothian Courier, where Boyle was first interviewed on video by writer Richard Mooney, went viral with over 5.4 million views and was selected YouTube's most memorable video of 2009. Articles on Boyle appeared in newspapers from all around the world after her performance. While American critics compared her to Paul Potts, she earned the nickname Subo in the UK press. News outlets like As ABC and NBC's entertainment sections have referred to Boyle as the woman who shut up Simon Cowell and Britain's newest pop sensation, respectively. After her performance on Britain's Got Talent, Boyle went on to appear on a slew of other TV shows such as Today, Larry King Live, The Oprah Winfrey Show, Fox's America's Newsroom, STV's The 5:30 Show, and CBS's The Early Show. In addition, she received an invitation to sing as a special guest at the Kohaku Uta Gassen, an annual Tokyo Songfest held on New Year's Eve, hosted by Japan's NHK. Despite Boyle's ineligibility for the 2010 Grammys, host Stephen Colbert recognized her effect throughout the event. He sarcastically referred to her as the music industry's savior, underscoring her unexpected impact on a worldwide scale. Susan overcame overwhelming odds to make an unforgettable impression on her audience, but there was still an obvious grief among the victory. The singer's manner had changed drastically after Susan's devastating news, and fans who were paying attention could see it. Susan Boyle chose to live a life of seclusion, free from the pressures of celebrity, because she preferred the calmness of a life away from the limelight. A tragic story that tells the story of Susan's complicated path lurks under the surface of her enormous achievement. Susan said of her latest project, "I really had a lot of fun making the album, and I hope the public like it as much as I enjoyed making it." However, while everyone was celebrating, secrets emerged that showed the darker side of Susan's rise to fame. Susan may have reached superstardom thanks to Britain's Got Talent, but she suffered physically and mentally from the stress of the profession. Susan found it incredibly difficult to navigate the foreign terrain of celebrity life, despite her true passion for singing. She had to summon all her will and determination to endure the torturous demands of constant scrutiny, negative comments, and media appearances. She checked herself into the hospital shortly after the series finale aired because the 5 weeks of constant media attention had taken a toll on her mental and physical health. Her previously strong personality had weakened to a vulnerable state, showing the clear effects of the toll. Susan experienced a crippling breakdown, which was eventually exposed in a surprising turn of events. Her public vote was unsuccessful despite her obvious talent, and she had a disturbing tantrum directed at the show management as a result. After publicly denouncing the program, rumors spread that Susan poured water on a staff worker as a means of releasing her pent-up frustrations. She was sent to a mental health care institution after the staff at her London apartment contacted the authorities in response to her unpredictable conduct. A few hours later, Susan had to be admitted to a mental health care facility. The news of her breakdown shocked the media and brought attention to the producers of Britain's Got Talent's disregard for Susan's delicate mental and physical health. Susan's spokesperson confirmed the awful news. Following the subsequent uproar, the UK's media regulator, Oxfam, was asked to investigate the show's decision to put ratings ahead of the health of its participants. However, the plan was later shelved. As a result of this terrible event, Susan rethought her music schedule and realized she needed to take it easy. But there was little time for relief because her hectic touring obligations remained. Still determined to pursue her dream of being a musician, Susan kept wowing crowds with her outstanding performances. After finally obtaining a correct diagnosis of her learning problem in 2013, Susan's career took a tragic turn. Susan was found to have Asperger's syndrome, a kind of autism spectrum condition rather than brain injury as had been previously thought. For the singer, the discovery was both a death sentence and a catalyst for personal growth. She felt animosity for a long time because of what she thought was a little birth defect that had caused permanent harm. She frequently bemoaned what she saw as her misfortune as she reflected on her academic career. The diagnosis of Asperger's brought about a fresh outlook and optimism, allowing her to receive the care she needed for the first time. In an honest interview with The Guardian, the singer revealed her lifelong battle with the stigmatizing term brain damaged, exposing the unfairness and brutality behind it. Hidden underneath her exterior, she acknowledged her innate humanity and boldly asserted her own manner of navigating the world. Furthermore, Susan conveyed a deep hope that her diagnosis will lead to more inclusive attitudes and actions by increasing empathy and understanding towards neurodivergent persons. She also stated, "I think people will treat me better because they will have a much greater understanding of who I am and why I do the things I do." After these brave revelations, Susan was showered with love from both her supporters and her detractors. In a field where being vulnerable is sometimes frowned upon, her unwavering honesty and genuineness earned her praise. In the middle of all these individual victories, Susan had to confront yet another test, a sacrifice that was both wonderful and painful. She had to give up her beloved treat, her love for chocolate, because she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Even though Susan was able to take preventative measures thanks to the prompt diagnosis, she still had to deal with the challenges of adapting to her new way of life. Her artistic endeavors were further thwarted when the COVID-19 epidemic broke out, forcing her to take extreme precautions for her health. As if that weren't bad enough, Susan was cut off from her colleagues and supporters throughout her nearly 2.5 years of seclusion, which further hampered her ability to pursue her artistic goals. Although Susan received widespread praise and had several albums that topped the charts, she was also dealing with personal issues that were bubbling away behind the scenes. Inspired by her meteoric rise to fame, the singer-songwriter spent her 2010 tax return on a house. However, her recently acquired home quickly turned into a battlefield when a group of troublemakers imposed an oppressive regime on her. Fear and worry overwhelmed Susan as she endured constant harassment, which included rock throwing, attempted break-ins, and arson attempts. After much hesitation, she gave her niece the key to her beloved home and returned to the comfort of her childhood home, leaving her dream home behind. In the middle of all this trouble, Susan was hit by a far deeper sorrow, which made her step away from the limelight. Susan was thrown into a tornado of sorrow and emotional upheaval when her beloved sister Bridie passed away at the age of 73 after a courageous fight with cancer. Susan, who was her sister Bridie's closest confidant, took up the role of guardian for Bridie's kid after her death. Bridie had been Susan's rock through the ups and downs of fame, cheering her on when she was under the microscope and mediating tensions within the family, most notably a long-running dispute with Jerry. Despite Susan's best intentions, her family began to argue over her money. Even Susan's own siblings were jealous of her multi-million-dollar fortune, which she had amassed through her singing career. Family strife ensued as a result of Susan's enticing money, especially after she decided to help her brother Jerry out financially. Problems started when Susan agreed to lend her brother Jerry £75,000 to turn around his failing firm. Claims of deceit and treachery tore at the foundation of their relationship, turning an act of kindness into a swift sour. Jerry, she said in response to her siblings' objections, had threatened to kill himself unless she gave him the money. A chasm was widened when Jerry publicly slandered Susan, claiming she was dishonest. A ray of hope, however, appeared in the middle of the animosity and separation, thanks to a surprising development. A public meltdown at Heathrow Airport in 2016 finally put an end to their long-running quarrel, and Susan was the one who broke the news. The brothers' ability to put aside their differences, find comfort in one another's company, and ultimately overcome tragedy is a moving testament to the strength of family ties. The unfortunate truth is that Susan's health problems have not improved. Susan Boyle has shown her compassion and support for humanitarian causes via her participation in several charitable events and performances. Consider the 26th of January 2010 charity recording of "Everybody Hurts," which she and other famous singers contributed to in support of the Haiti disaster victims, coordinated by Simon Cowell. Boyle also donated her skills to aid in the relief operations in Haiti and Africa at the Insamling Charity Gala that took place on January 30, 2010 in Copenhagen, Denmark. Major UK telethons were also part of Boyle's humanitarian initiatives. On March 19, 2010, she gave a performance for Sport Relief on BBC One, and on March 18, 2011, she and Peter Kay sang a duet of "I Know Him So Well" for Comic Relief. The duet was a huge hit when it was published on many media to generate more money for charity. To top it all off, Boyle lent her voice to the cause 5 times during the BBC Children in Need telethon. On the 10th of November 2010, Boyle attended the Pride of Britain Awards in London. On the 19th of March 2011, she appeared at the Scottish Variety Awards in Glasgow. Both of her performances raised money for the Cash for Kids charity. By performing at the 2013 Special Olympics Great Britain National Summer Games in Bath on August 28, she was also showing her support for the Lothian Special Olympics team. Furthermore, Boyle showcased her dedication to philanthropic causes by performing at the Prince and Princess of Wales Hospice 30th Anniversary Variety Performance in Glasgow's Clyde Auditorium on October 27, 2013. When it comes to charity causes, Boyle has been an outspoken supporter, especially of the Scottish Catholic International Aid Fund, SCIF. She showed her unwavering dedication to humanitarian causes over the course of 3 years by launching the We Box campaign in Glasgow on March 9, 2011, February 21, 2012, and February 12, 2013. Among Boyle's numerous philanthropic endeavors, several charities have benefited from the sale of her freely provided performance gowns. Charity events featuring these costumes have included appearances on shows like America's Got Talent, Ana Rosa, and The Oprah Winfrey, as well as events hosted by organizations including the Prince's Trust, Metro Radio Newcastle, England's Cash for Kids campaign, and the Laura McPhee Memorial Fund, ASMA, UK charity. Boyle was appointed as an ambassador for Save the Children UK on October 28, 2013, in acknowledgement of her commitment to humanitarian issues. The FAST program's youngsters sang Elvis Presley's "Oh Come All Ye Faithful" in a music video she published on December 8, 2013, with all revenues going to Save the Youngsters UK and the Elvis Presley Charitable Foundation. The news broke in 2022 that she had a little stroke, further derailing her career goals in the music business. The tragic news broke that same year after her incredible performance on Britain's Got Talent. With this, Susan returned to the play for a special performance with the West End Les Miserables ensemble, marking 14 years since her debut. Susan fearlessly shared her recent health setback with the world, despite the emotional gravity of the moment, saying, "It's extra special for me. Actually, last April I suffered a minor stroke. I thought it would be crazy to be back on stage, but I've done it." Later that night, She showed her unfaltering determination by taking to Instagram to show the extensive speech practice she had to give her beloved rendition of "I Dreamed a Dream," a testament to her courage and strength. Susan is fighting a multitude of health issues now while she pursues her musical dreams. She has mostly withdrawn from public view after her stroke, although she still performs for her loyal admirers whenever she is able. She recently came clean about her hopes and dreams by admitting that not having children is one of her biggest regrets. Despite this, Susan has discovered comfort and company in an undisclosed connection with an American sweetheart, whose name is concealed even from the most determined corners of the media. Reports indicate that Susan is pleased in a good and secure relationship, although she remains reclusive about her love life. In spite of this, Susan has shown little interest in getting married and is steadfast in her desire for seclusion. Susan keeps a low profile when it comes to her private life, even if her partner sometimes joins her on holidays and birthdays. The songstress's steadfast commitment to her art guarantees that her legacy as a talented performer will continue, even as her admirers eagerly await new music from her. While we wait for more information, let us not forget to honor Susan Boyle's remarkable ability and resilience. For additional information about your favorite celebs and to keep up to date, click on the video that will appear on your screen once you pay attention to this one. We will meet there.